My wife cheated during her girls' night with her sister. We reconciled just in time for cancer to take her, and I'll never forgive what that betrayal stole from us. The dull thud of dirt hitting the coffin echoed on the gloomy day. I stood there, observing as the minister uttered consoling words for those mourning. My daughter clutched my hand, her husband standing just behind us, offering support with his hand on my shoulder. Beside me stood my son and his girlfriend. At 49 years old, I never expected to be standing graveside burying my wife. I always believed, deep down, I would be the first to go. I thought that, due to my work and the way I had lived my life, I would surely die before my wife, and that when I did, I'd be an old man. Now, I felt old, ancient. After the funeral, there was the reception. Everyone came up to me, telling me how sorry they were, how great she was, how wonderful we were, how young she was, everything but what I needed to hear. We had been married over 20 years, with 2 kids, both now off on their own. The youngest, my daughter, is married and about to have my first grandchild. The oldest, my son, is working in New York City in the financial district. Both are doing well. With all the people at our house, I guess it's my house now, see? I'm having a hard time adjusting to this being single. Everything for the last 20 years has been ours, not mine. Anyway, about 40 people were around, talking and offering their support. I just wanted to be alone at the moment. Feeling quite fed up, I finally slipped out into the backyard and worked my way out the back gate, intending to take a short walk. As I closed the gate, someone drove up the alley and parked their car right next to where I was standing. "How are you holding up?" It was Marie, my wife's younger sister, the one person in the world I didn't want to see at the moment. It was partially Marie's fault that my loving wife was no longer here. If Marie had kept her interest to herself, Brenda would still be with me. I informed her that I was going for a walk, mentioning that everyone was inside and she had been talked about. I didn't smile, nor did I openly invite her. I just stated the facts as I saw them. I now wanted to be away from here for certain, and I was sure Marie would try to invite herself on my walk. I should have known better, as she just brushed past me and went into the backyard. She had always been all about Marie. That's why, when Marie had taken a sudden interest in Brenda's personal life, I became suspicious. That was out of character for her younger sister in many ways. I sighed, glad to be free of her for the moment. There was a cloud hanging between us and a chasm that, to me, seemed insurmountable now. Family or no, Marie was persona non grata around me. It's a long story about what happened and how it all mushroomed into the funeral today. Life goes on, just like water in a river, always moving relentlessly onward. Okay, here's my story. This is the account of what unfolded in my life. Brenda and I crossed paths after college at her workplace, an insurance company, where I went to renew my house and car policies, and she happened to be my assigned agent. Following our initial meeting, I found myself finding reasons to return, eventually summoning the courage to ask her out. After a few months of dating, we realized our deep love for each other and decided to get married. We had 2 children, and our marriage was full and wonderful up until 2 years ago. I never doubted my decision to marry Brenda. We were like 2 peas in a pod, incredibly compatible. Then Marie became intrigued by Brenda's life. I believe her intentions were well-meaning, thinking Brenda needed to expand and grow as a person, striving to be better and more loving. You could see in Marie that she had been trying hard to assist Brenda with what she perceived as shortcomings. It all began with Wednesday night outings, expanding to include Fridays, as Vince noted. After a while, Marie started spending more time with Brenda than I did, taking advantage of Brenda's time when I would normally be at home. It soon became all about Marie. When it became a daily routine, I began to withdraw from Brenda. Every time I attempted to spend quality time with my wife, Marie always seemed to be present. When I wanted Brenda to join me or when I planned to take Brenda out for dinner, what was once a communicative and open relationship soon became closed off and non-talkative. I couldn't express my feelings without Brenda becoming upset, accusing me of being harsh and unfair to her younger sister. If all I was going to do was upset my wife by attempting to be with her, then why bother? A few months after the growing girls' night out became a significant part of our lives, I could see that my marriage was in serious trouble. Yet, I couldn't talk to my wife about it without her becoming upset and defensive. So, I did the worst thing I could have done. I gave up. I spent my time pursuing my interests, and Brenda began doing her own thing. On our rare nights at home together, we felt like 2 strangers living in the same house. Then, one night, or rather early morning, it all started. The night before everything went awry, I was at home, working in the garage on a project on a Friday night, while Brenda and Marie were out on their usual Friday night outing. They left the house around 6:30, and I found myself preparing my own dinner, increasingly eating in the garage. So, I got dinner ready, took it out there, and listened to my boombox as I worked and ate. I worked until 11, and then went inside. I half expected Brenda to be in bed already, but I was somewhat surprised to find she wasn't even home yet. I noticed the light flashing on the phone, indicating a waiting message. The message mentioned that she was staying at Marie's for the night due to being out for a while and not being in a condition to drive home. The message also conveyed the intention to see me in the morning. I thought to myself, why bother? I never see you anymore anyway. Just move in with your sister and be happy. Update. Yeah, I'll confess, I was angry and envious. I felt a void when Marie developed a particular interest in her sister, and now I couldn't figure out how to reclaim my wife. I longed to be with Brenda, missing our conversations, laughter, and the gentle banter of a couple who knew each other confidentially. Recently it seemed I also missed the playful moments we once shared. After replaying and deleting the voicemail, I overheard men's voices in the background at Marie's house with my wife, and it sounded like a party. When I called, after 9 rings, a man answered and mentioned it was my money, advising me not to waste it. I requested to speak to Brenda, but the man described her as being occupied and suggested calling back around noon the next day. He identified himself as her husband. Despite my insistence to speak to her, he abruptly hung up on me with a dismissive remark. Furious, I redialed multiple times over the next half hour, but nobody picked up. After trying 3 times and growing angrier, I finally had enough. Snatching my car keys, I left the house and drove to Marie's, finding nobody home. Then I recalled I had dialed Brenda's cell phone. I had no idea where she was or who she was with. I didn't know if she was there willingly or if she had been abducted. I knew nothing. I drove home angrier than ever, angry and scared. I went in and poured myself a drink. At some point, I concluded that Brenda was doing this willingly, and the police couldn't or wouldn't intervene for 24 hours. I even considered that Brenda had invited the men. My mind played tricks on me, worsened by drinks. In the morning, I woke with a pounding headache and dry mouth. After a shower and getting dressed, I took some aspirin. In the mirror, I saw a man with a haunted, lost look. After a light breakfast, I waited for either a phone call or Brenda to return. Around 2, she pulled into the driveway, looking great in one of my favorite dresses, slinky and tight-fitting, revealing lots of leg and a bit of chest. Brenda had only worn it on special occasions with me, and even then, only if she intended for a late night. She explained that she hadn't come home the previous night, citing an evening with Marie involving a few too many drinks. By the time they reached Marie's place, she was too tired to drive, so she stayed there. Brenda mentioned crashing at her sister's place, sleeping until a little while ago, taking a quick shower, and now being back. Observing my demeanor, she inquired about my apparent upset, asking what was wrong, mentioning my name. I expressed my concern, mentioning that I had called her cell several times the previous night. After the first call, the person who answered informed me that she was occupied. I identified myself as her husband, but he promptly hung up. Subsequent calls went unanswered. Observing the dress she was wearing, I couldn't help but wonder if she had worn it for someone else. Additionally, I questioned where she had worn it, as when I went to Marie's, neither of them was there, and her place was dark. Brenda took a seat but unfortunately missed the chair as I spoke. She turned, reacting to the news that I had called and a man had answered her cell phone, turning white in the face. It seemed she miscalculated the distance to the easy chair, landing about a foot or so away. Despite being on the floor, she remained motionless, hands on her face and tears streaming. Unable to bear the situation, I perceived her shame, and it was evident she had done something regrettable. Frustrated, I rose and stormed out to the garage. I locked the door, cranking up the stereo as loud as I could stand it. In those couple of hours, I accomplished little beyond venting my frustration by crushing things around and cursing at Marie, Brenda, and the person who answered the phone the previous night. As I cooled off and silenced the stereo, I pondered the unraveling of my marriage, attributing it all to Marie. In my perspective, happiness and love between Brenda and me had thrived before Marie, but she had driven us apart. Now it seemed Brenda sought happiness or satisfaction elsewhere, possibly from another man or, worse, multiple men. During my time in the workshop, the realization sank in that I likely lost Brenda for good, heading towards a divorce. Returning to the house, I found myself alone, assuming Brenda sought solace at Marie's. In our bedroom, I was shocked to see Brenda's dresser drawers open and empty. Scanning the closet, I noticed only a few sporadic items, hardly worn anymore. She had left me. Given it was a Sabbath, online banking was my only option. I went online, strategizing how to rearrange finances to safeguard myself if Brenda opted for a permanent departure. I was determined not to suffer financially after years of diligently building a substantial savings in a bank account. Subsequently, I reached out to a friend who had experienced divorce, scheduling a meeting to discuss Brenda and me. I also informed our kids about the strange situation between their mom and me, clarifying that she might have moved out. When my daughter inquired about her whereabouts, I honestly admitted I didn't know. Update. A week passed, during which I immersed myself in work, attempting to divert my focus from the disarray of my deteriorating home life. Each night, I resorted to drinking and sleeping, rising just in time for a quick shower before returning to work. This marked 1 week since I had last seen my wife. I met up with my friend, and our conversation didn't yield much advice beyond what I already had a sense of. The primary suggestion was to safeguard my assets first, then address Brenda's intentions and actions. Throughout the entire week, Brenda remained silent, with no phone calls or visits to my workplace. Until Saturday night, I became convinced she had abandoned our relationship long before now, likely involved with another man. That night, I decided to call Marie's house. Marie was surprised to learn that Brenda wasn't home with me, assuming she was still upset and staying close to home. I informed her that I hadn't seen Brenda at all, expressing that it wasn't right. I suggested that what happened between us was because of her. Marie contested, stating that it was awfully harsh and that I didn't mean that. I affirmed, expressing that I did mean it. We were fine until Marie started taking Brenda out every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday night. I conveyed that her girls' nights out had ruined us, and I hoped she achieved whatever it was she was aiming for. I mentioned that Brenda was gone, and I was sure we were about to get divorced. If she wasn't with Marie, she must be with that person who answered her phone last Friday night. Marie, surprised that I knew about last Friday night, disclosed that on Saturday afternoon, Brenda showed up at home in her want-to-get-laid dress, all freshly showered. She shared that she told Brenda about some strange guy answering her phone, and Brenda sat on the floor and cried. Later on, when Marie came in from the garage, Brenda had packed her things and left. Marie concluded by saying that her actions had cost me my wife and warned her not to come around me again. Despite her pleas not to hang up, my anger prevented me from listening. I just wanted to shut everything out. Her, Brenda, the other man, and life in general. The word furious didn't capture my feelings adequately. Simply hearing Marie on the phone reignited my rage. I was angry and lost, with my wife somewhere unknown and no means of repairing our relationship. After a heated exchange over the phone, I slammed it down so forcefully that I broke the handset, adding the purchase of a new phone to my growing list of concerns. It took a while before I mustered the energy to get up and go to bed, realizing I had been sitting in the same spot where Brenda had collapsed on me not so long ago. By morning, I concluded that I had come out on the losing end and would have been better off staying up all night drinking. A dreary Sunday morning greeted me, and I was in no mood to deal with anyone. Around noon, I heard a car pull up in our front driveway, and looking out the window, I saw my son emerging. My son asked about what had happened around here, mentioning that Mom came to his place a week ago, upset and crying. She wouldn't talk to him about anything except that I was going to leave her. He inquired about what was going on. I informed him that we were having problems, and that she left me. She packed her things and ran, and this was the first I knew where she was at all this time. He mentioned that Mom came to his place, adding that it was kind of embarrassing as he had a friend over, and she spent the night he didn't know where Mom had been. He asked when she showed up at my place. I answered that it was on Sunday, after he called and talked to me. She refused to let me call him and talk to him. She wanted me to leave him alone for fear that he'd hunt her down. He questioned what was going on and if I was going to hurt her. I explained that I was tired. It had been a week of worry and stress like none I'd ever had before. Now my son had to drive over 300 miles on a Sunday to ask me what was going on and why his mom was at his place, refusing to let him talk to me. Last week she went out with Aunt Marie. Mom told me about that. She ended up missing your call, and somehow you got real angry about it. What got into you? Why would you do that? I explained that she missed my call, and that's what she told him, just that she missed my call. I shared that she mentioned someone else intercepted the call before she knew about it, and I got real mad at her. She was afraid, so she ran. He noted that she missed telling him some important details and asked me to tell him what happened. I recounted that last Friday night, Mom went out with Aunt Marie, like clockwork. I was in the garage, working on a few things for a while, came in about 11, and found Mom wasn't home yet. I saw she had left a message on the phone that I had missed, stating she had too much to drink and was going to stay at Marie's. My son acknowledged that Mom told him about the message part. He mentioned that when she left the message, he replayed it to ensure he understood it correctly, noting that I often did that. He replayed it and heard men's voices in the background, which worried him. So, he called Mom's cell phone. It rang 9 times, and a strange guy picked up. He asked to speak to her, and the guy told him she was tied up at the moment and to call back tomorrow after afternoon. He identified himself as her husband, but the guy hung up after telling him to duck off. I responded, realizing that Mom had sugarcoated that part. He asked if Mom cheated on me, and I admitted that I wasn't sure what happened. She left before we talked about it, but she seemed guilty about something. I hadn't spoken to her since Saturday afternoon. He suggested that we needed to talk to each other, proposing that we come over to his place to discuss things. He assured us that he and his new girlfriend would be there to support us. I agreed to talk, and he emphasized that we should come as we are, without weapons. He recognized my anger but urged us to work things out and not let this situation fester. He offered to follow me home, and I considered riding with him in case things didn't work out at his place. He assured me that he would make sure I got home okay. During the drive to my son's place, I realized that I still had some love for Brenda, even if she had cheated on me. I think that right at that moment, I was willing to try to work things out with her. When we got to Mark's place, he parked and we went inside. His girlfriend was sitting with Brenda, and when I walked in, they both got up looking nervous. She greeted me, asking how I had been. I felt the anger boiling inside me. Without checking myself, I began to blow up, barely managing to curtail my anger in time. I yelled at her, accusing her of cheating, and saw her shrinking from me. I had to pause and catch myself, apologizing for my outburst. I admitted that I had been okay, drinking a bit too much lately and feeling confused about things. She looked pale and nervous. The woman I loved, the woman I had spent the better part of my life with, was afraid of me. That hurt me deep inside. My heart was breaking. I loved her still, and she was afraid of me. I wondered if we could patch things up. When a young woman, presumably the guest, interjected, introducing herself as Jill, she expressed a wish that we could have met under better circumstances. I took her proffered hand and shook it gently, responding that I shared the same sentiment and hoped we could get to know each other a bit more. Although Mark hadn't mentioned seeing anyone yet, I glanced knowingly at him, conveying a slight reprimand in my eyes. Jill urged us to talk, while she and Mark would be in the other room, ready to intervene if things got difficult. They emphasized the need for us to keep our cool due to the thin walls and floors in the apartment building. After Mark and Jill left, Brenda began to explain things to me, expressing sincere apologies. I responded by asking if she had something to be sorry about, questioning if she had slept with some guy. She clarified that it wasn't exactly that, and I pressed for more information. I confronted her about sleeping with more than one guy, and her revelation stunned me. I was flat out shocked. This was not the person I had married years ago, and I felt like I didn't know who she was anymore. She admitted that she didn't do this openly and freely of her own choice. She explained that she was drunk and had consumed too many drinks that night. Marie had been pushing her for weeks to get out, and perhaps loneliness played a role. She couldn't fully understand how it all came about, but suddenly found herself on a bed with two men. Initially, it started with just one guy, but by the end, she had been with all of them. Marie was there too, and by the end of the night, she had been with all of them, including Marie. The guys had arranged it in a way that she didn't consider it exploitation, and she was drunk enough not to think about the consequences until it was far too late. Her revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. I had expected to hear she had cheated on me. I hadn't figured more than one man, nor her and Marie doing things together either. They were sisters, for Christ's sake. I sat there, not knowing what to say. Our talk had taken about 5 minutes so far, and we were already into the part about her having been with other men. She wasn't hiding, or I didn't think she was hiding, anything from me. She must have read my mind. She expressed a willingness to tell me whatever I wanted to know, sharing that she wasn't sure how everything came to be and when she became involved in it. She admitted to not remembering her wedding vows or her husband waiting at home. At one point, she found herself begging for more, and she described herself as a terrible person who didn't deserve me or even to live. Her sobs overtook her ability to speak, and she collapsed. I observed her, feeling unsure about the person in front of me. Shocked and stunned, I couldn't find the words to respond. The situation overwhelmed me, and I started to feel ill. Update. I started to throw up. I calmed down and was able to settle my stomach with a glass of water. Wiping my face off, I returned to the kitchen table. Brenda was in tears, crying softly. I wanted to go to her and hold her. The problem was, I didn't know if it would be okay ever again. I sat down heavily, wanting to know what to say or ask without getting sick again. She explained that the nights out with Marie were not for scouting men, and that it had never happened before. They had gone to a new club, and she had been drinking too much. The guys at the club were buying them drinks, dancing with them and complimenting them, making her feel beautiful and playful. The next thing she knew, she called me and left a message that she was too drunk, and they went to the guy's place. I interjected, expressing my frustration, stating that lately she hadn't been paying attention to me. I pointed out that she and Marie were the reason, as they hadn't been letting me even try. I reminded her that I had tried to get her to go out with me, but she had insisted on being with Marie. I accused her of lying to me, as the message she left mentioned she was at Marie's place. She clarified that at the time she thought they were going to Marie's place. but the men wanted to take them to their place first for a minute to pick up something. She explained that they didn't think it would be a problem, but ended up getting involved in a regrettable situation. She mentioned that if only she hadn't thought I should have paid more attention to her, she might have been better prepared to fend off what happened. I couldn't contain my frustration, raising my voice as she continued to suggest it was my fault. I pointed out that she had been the one ignoring me, consistently going out with Marie every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday night. I accused her of pushing me out of her life and taking up Marie's cause. To me, I noticed a change in her eyes as she realized she couldn't blame me entirely for her actions. She admitted that she hadn't realized it was her until now and acknowledged that I was right about that part. She recognized that her constant presence with Marie had led to my lack of attention. I questioned if she enjoyed being in such situations, referring to her use of the term Scarlet Woman several times. She denied ever calling me a Scarlet Woman or treating me like one, expressing her hatred for it. I learned that she discovered she liked what she did with those men, citing the tastes, textures, sizes, and combinations as factors that intrigued her. She admitted to enjoying the different and new experiences, and acknowledged that some of them were things she had always wanted to try with me, but couldn't bring herself to ask. She expressed regret for losing herself in the situation, and recognized that she had lost me. She hated that she had engaged in closeness acts with other men, things that should have been reserved for me. I responded with a sense of uncertainty, stating that there might be a chance to move past this difficult time. She seized on this glimmer of hope, expressing a willingness to do anything to be with me and stay married. She promised not to go out anymore unless I was with her, committing to being a stay-at-home wife and doing anything I wanted. I remained skeptical, questioning her sudden willingness to talk and work with me. I raised concerns about her past actions, especially when she was going out with Marie, and questioned whether she would resume such behavior when things cooled off. I emphasized that Marie had driven a wedge between us, taking up the time we used to spend together. I expressed my discontent, stating that I was sorry for her previous actions. I conveyed that I had not fully realized the extent to which she had been ignoring and avoiding me, questioning why she allowed herself to do so. I made it clear that things wouldn't be simple moving forward, highlighting the fact that she had cheated on me and us. I asked about her involvement with other men, emphasizing the emotional toll it took on me. I confronted her about the idea of passing it off as staying with Marie and questioned if she would have continued lying if I hadn't found out. I expressed my rising anger, and Brenda could see it in my eyes as my voice increased in volume. Mark and Jill discreetly entered the kitchen. In that instance, my son suggested a short break, proposing that either he and I or Jill and I could take a walk. Jill took hold of my arm, guiding me out of my chair, though I had already half risen. Her tug felt powerful, indicating her strength. She suggested that we go for a walk, allowing me to share my thoughts while Mark and Brenda had their conversation. I agreed, acknowledging that it was probably the best course of action. In that moment, my anger had been escalating, and it had reached a point where I might have lost control. The diversion provided by the suggestion to take a walk spared us from a potentially volatile situation, but the unsettling thought of what might have happened lingered in my mind. As we strolled about a block, Jill initiated a conversation with me. She acknowledged my anger, expressing that Brenda and she had discussed Brenda's actions while Mark had fetched me. Jill conveyed that Brenda was genuinely remorseful and sorry for jeopardizing her marriage, plagued by guilt over the entire situation. I listened to her, absorbing the information. Eventually, I responded, emphasizing Brenda's significant mistakes. I articulated my frustration, highlighting how Brenda's sister Marie had taken up much of her time that she had previously spent with me. The revelation of their involvement in a drunken encounter fueled my resentment, and I expressed a deep sense of hatred at that moment, unsure whether I would ever overcome it. Jill shared a personal anecdote about her parents, revealing that they had faced a similar situation a few years ago when her mom went out with friends and ended up getting involved with someone. Her initial concern for her dad's reaction shifted to relief when they managed to work things out, although she clarified that it didn't necessarily mean they stayed married. Acknowledging the complexity of Brenda's actions, Jill emphasized that Brenda's mistake was significant and had occurred on multiple levels. Despite this, Jill believed that Brenda still loved me. She reassured me that, despite appearances, Brenda hadn't cast me aside. According to Jill, Brenda had made a grave error, finding herself in a situation that spiraled out of control too quickly. Jill attributed such situations to the influence of drinks and medications, leading to lowered inhibitions, peer pressure, and unintended consequences. Walking and talking with Jill, I expressed my perspective on the situation, mentioning that Brenda had strayed while I remained faithful. I also pointed out the impact of Brenda's sister Marie frequently coming over and taking her away from me. As we continued our conversation, I noticed my anger subsiding, thanks in part to Jill's soft and soothing way of talking. Reflecting on the uncertain future of my relationship with Brenda, I admitted to feeling messed up inside. Despite attempting to sound cheerful, I couldn't shake the emotional turmoil. I acknowledged that part of my struggle involved understanding how Brenda found herself in such a situation. Suppressing my anger, I tried to maintain composure, recognizing the need to rise above any potential righteous indignation. Jill encouraged me to ask any questions I had. Though I attempted to lift my mood, the emotional toll persisted. Jill inquired about the state of our relationship before Marie's frequent visits. I shared that, despite the natural fading of the initial magic in our 20-year marriage, I believe things were fine, perhaps even better than many couples, with the time we spent together. In our conversation, Jill asked if I used to take Brenda out frequently. I admitted that perhaps I had taken her for granted, and that Marie played a significant role in driving a wedge between us. I explained that whenever I attempted to spend time with Brenda, Marie interfered, either causing Brenda to refuse or getting upset for taking her away from her sister. I expressed my frustration with Marie, referring to her as the bish at the moment. Jill probed deeper, asking about the romantic aspects of our relationship. I confessed that, given our long history together, I assumed the effort to maintain the relationship was a thing of the past. Jill emphasized the importance of romance, distinguishing it from mere physical relationships. I acknowledged the oversight and recognized the need to express my feelings more, regretting not putting in more effort to make Brenda feel cherished. As Jill continued to guide me through self-reflection, she emphasized the significance of small gestures in nurturing a relationship. I admitted that I should have worked harder to convey my thoughts and feelings to Brenda, realizing that being more romantic might have made a difference. Jill's efforts to make me think clearly were evident, though I acknowledged that Brenda's time with Marie had already taken away the opportunity for equal time together. Jill pointed out that some of the biggest fights in our marriage revolved around Brenda and Marie's girls' nights out, emphasizing that Brenda seemed more focused on her sister than on our relationship. She suggested that our drift apart was noticeable and, while acknowledging Brenda's wrongdoing, she also hinted that better communication and understanding might have prevented the situation. I expressed frustration, wondering if Jill was taking Brenda's side, but she assured me that it wasn't about blame. Jill acknowledged that Brenda needed something she wasn't getting from me, and if we had addressed those issues earlier, it might have averted the crisis. I defended my efforts, stating that I never considered cheating despite my frustrations with Brenda's time spent with Marie. Jill urged me to talk to Brenda directly, advising a calm and direct approach. She reminded me that Mark thought highly of me and emphasized that divorce might not be the solution, encouraging open communication. Jill suggested that resolving our issues through conversation could rekindle our love and help us move past the recent challenges. Update. I wish I could exude the confidence Jill showed. She seemed knowledgeable, possibly having learned from her parents' past troubles. Back at Mark's, Brenda was composed, waiting for our conversation. I confronted Brenda about the state of our relationship, expressing uncertainty about where we stood. Brenda admitted she wanted to be with me but acknowledged the uncertainty of my acceptance after her betrayal. She apologized sincerely, emphasizing that apologies couldn't undo what happened and that we needed to face and address the issue. In response, I conveyed my struggle, not only with the act of cheating but also with the circumstances involving multiple individuals. I pointed out the hurtful aspect of involving her sister and expressed the pain of trying to win her back while she was unresponsive, only for her to seek a chance after being with others. Brenda regretted her actions, claimed it was never her intention to cheat, and attributed the situation to the influence of drinks. I questioned whether there was still room for me in her life, expressing concerns about the impact of her choices on our relationship. The conversation left us both grappling with the complexities of trust, forgiveness, and the potential for rebuilding our connection. Brenda pleaded with me not to say certain things, expressing her love for me and acknowledging her severe mistake. She admitted the impossibility of undoing that terrible night, expressing her hope for forgiveness and trust in the future. Brenda proposed a trial separation, recognizing our uncertainties about the way forward. As she spoke, a tear welled up in Brenda's eye, indicating her preparedness for my potential decision. I felt torn between conflicting emotions, a sense of satisfaction in seeing her pain mixed with a deep love and desire not to lose her. Brenda, however, expressed understanding if I chose to pursue a divorce, recognizing her lack of excuses and the inability of her words to prevent my departure. She reluctantly agreed to a trial separation if that was what I thought we needed. Jill intervened forcefully, cautioning against a trial separation that could lead to a swift divorce. Drawing from the experience of her own parents, she suggested a different approach, emphasizing the importance of facing the mistake together. She proposed separation within the same house to encourage communication and working through the issues rather than drifting further apart. I remained silent, absorbing Jill's perspective on the matter. The authority in her voice resonated with some truth to me. I acknowledged that what she said was reasonable. System, reasonable, but what about those thoughts of mine and my pleasure in Brenda's pain? I looked at Brenda and contemplated for a bit. Could I let her into my house again? Could I resist the urge to kick or hurt her over the next weeks or months? Could I ever learn to cope with all that had happened? Jill's voice broke the silence, addressing me and my son, expressing concern about the situation. Mark joined in, questioning what was happening and awaiting a response. I acknowledged the pressure, expressing uncertainty about the safety of a trial separation considering my current anger. I admitted to feeling a significant amount of anger over the situation. Jill and Mark understood my emotions, and Jill emphasized the importance of being together to work through our issues, citing her parents' experience. She insisted that staying together and facing the challenges was the only way to find out if we could make it work. I contemplated Jill's words, pondering the realistic alternatives available to us. Expressing my doubts, I found it challenging to believe that being with Brenda and working through our issues was the right solution. The lingering anger I felt raised concerns about the potential for physical damage if we were together. I was aware of the toll our separation had taken on both of us over the past week, and I didn't want us to become another statistic in the grand scheme of life. Addressing Mark and Jill, I expressed my displeasure with feeling coerced into a decision. I made it clear that I wouldn't make such a crucial choice under duress. Instead, I requested Mark to take me to a motel for the time being, promising to communicate my decision the next morning after having some time to reflect on the situation. Update. When I returned the next morning in a cab, Brenda appeared to be still sitting in the same place, and Mark and Jill had noticeably more somber expressions on their faces than they had yesterday. It was evident that none of them had slept at all. I knew I had to give them my answer. I suggested to Brenda that she should return home, assuring her that I would make an effort not to damage her physically. However, I acknowledged the likelihood of occasional outbursts of anger, emphasizing the need to be together to address our issues. I proposed a temporary arrangement where we would stay in separate bedrooms, physically apart yet attempting to work through our challenges. I made it clear that I couldn't guarantee anything beyond that. Brenda sat there, tears running down her face. I could see she was happy about it, yet apprehensive too. She was thinking, what if I got violent or something? I could see it in her eyes. I probably had the same look in mine too. Trust goes a long way to dispelling that look, and the trust in our marriage was now long gone. It was going to be a long, hard road for a while. Brenda suggested counseling, a topic that had crossed my mind earlier when her nights out with Marie had already strained our relationship. I acknowledged the need for counseling, both individually and together, and agreed to initiate the process the next day. Brenda, in response, left the kitchen briefly and returned with suitcases in hand. My son Mark asked if we could go home, and I mentioned that my car was in a local parking garage. Mark volunteered to retrieve it, and Jill offered to drive in the midst of this. Mark dropped a surprising bombshell. He had proposed to Jill last Saturday night, and she had accepted. I expressed my acceptance of Jill into the family and wished them happiness together, regardless of what happened between Brenda and me. We left together. It was a quiet, intense trip home, though each of us was in deep thought. That whole next week went the same way. The tension kept building and building. Our first appointment together with the counselor was the following week, and I wasn't sure we'd make it. We did, but just barely. We made that first appointment and the following ones until one day the counselor cut us loose on our own. We had spent the last 8 months going once a week together. Separate individual visits were interspersed between those. We worked it out, and while it was not easy, we managed to get around the whole nightmare in the end. One day, Brenda came home from the doctor, appearing troubled. I sensed that something serious was amiss, but she hesitated to disclose the news. Eventually, she took a solitary walk, and when she got back, she informed me in the living room. "Jeff, I have some bad news about me." I asked what, knowing that she'd never cheat on me again. I also understood that she'd been bothered by something for quite some time now. Brenda had always been one who didn't like to talk about her issues with anyone, even doctors. She broke down crying, expressing, "I am sick, Jeff, real sick. They said that I have cancer." I learned that it started in her ovaries and had spread, and unfortunately they didn't catch it in time. As she left the statement unfinished, she conveyed they don't think I was numb for the second time in my life. I questioned what she meant. Brenda reassured me that we would fight, that this cancer could be beaten, that there were treatments, and we would win this battle together. I shared my thoughts with her, mentioning that each thing I said seemed to bring more tears from Brenda. As time passed, I began to wonder if she was going to fight at all. She conveyed, "It's beyond fixing, Jeff. This appointment today was with a specialist that my doctor wanted me to see. He ran a few tests and made me wait for the results." He was about to cry when he told me the news. Brenda revealed that the cancer had spread to her lymph glands and liver, along with other parts of her body. There was concern it might have reached her head, and the mention of the MRI was distressing. Tearfully, she expressed, "Oh God, I don't want to die, Jeff, I don't. I love you." Regretfully, she admitted, "I wasted all that time with Marie and caused our troubles when I should have gone in to see the doctor way back then. It's my fault. I ignored some of the symptoms, it spread. I wanted to be there for Marie since I thought she needed me. It's too late now. I only have a few months. I am so sorry, Jeff." I expressed, "Brenda, I'm the one that's sorry. What can I do for you? What can we do?" She replied, "Just hold me, Jeff. Love me and hold me. That's all anyone can do for me now." I followed her request, holding her close. Forgotten were those days of anger and pain. We now faced new challenges, anger and pain brought by the dreaded cancer. Despite the time we were apart and Brenda had fallen, we had generally been a happy couple. I made an effort to maintain a positive and happy attitude around Brenda throughout the time she wasted away. At some point, we believed that some of the treatments might have been helping her, but later we discovered that was not the case. She outlasted the doctor's original estimate by a few months. Fortunately, she had her children and me by her side when she passed away. This is why I have issues with Marie. I question if I am being unfair, if I should forgive and forget. However, I find it difficult because Marie led my wife into a net of pain and suffering, causing us to lose precious time together. Almost a whole year was destroyed, a year that could have been spent loving each other, not struggling to overcome Brenda's one-night mistake. Additionally, there's the lingering question of whether that cancer could have been detected earlier. I don't know. I'll always wonder, though.